So today in this video, I want to highlight two things. One is the severe weather event that is happening today in the Northeast, and the second is Hurricane Beryl. So just to start with the severe weather event today in the Northeast, a warm front has passed through. Dew points are in the 70s. It is incredibly humid outside. I think dew point 76 where I am right now. Temperatures are warming into the 80s. We can see cloud cover is starting to break from the morning's rain and the overnight rain. And once this cloud cover breaks, instability is going to build to massive levels, mixed layer, convective level, potential energy, ND 3000s, which is extremely high for the Northeast. I know for the areas in the South, this pretty much nothing happens every day, but here's quite a bit of instability. Surface-based K values reaching into the 4000s by peak daytime heating. And if the convection is able to hold off until maybe around 4 or 5 p.m., maybe 6 p.m., then these values will be at their highest. But if it comes in around 2, 3, then they may not be able to realize their maximum values. So that's instability, right? Additionally, the elevated layer, the equilibrium level is really, really high. So these storms are going to have high tops along with the high instability. And at the surface, we're going to have inverted V profiles with the dew point decreasing and the temperature increasing when you move down in the atmosphere. And what this is going to lead to is it's going to lead to the potential for really, really strong downdrafts along with high precipitable water values because the moisture is really high out here. So damaging winds are the main threat here. That's why we have an enhanced risk for wind damage mainly. And if we look at the shear values, they're mainly going to be parallel to the storm orientation. So it's going to be linear segments. And this is going to lead to, again, mainly a wind damage threat. But again, I think one thing to watch out here today is going to be Boeing segments. Just like there were yesterday across Pennsylvania, a couple of Boeing segments. We don't have to watch for that today because shear values are peaking around 30, 40 knots at 3 kilometers and staying pretty much constant as you get up, maybe a little bit higher. At least that's in the area of the coastal plain from New Jersey to Massachusetts. That's how it is. North of there, we're going to have, and especially Maine, we're going to have higher deep layer shear values, so they'll have to watch out for supercells there. But again, instability is going to be lower. And south of New Jersey, instability is going to be high, but shear won't be very much. So it's mainly going to be multi-cells with water-loaded downdraft potential. So in this area between New Jersey, Massachusetts, the coastal area, the main thing to look for is Boeing segments. Because the shear values are orientated perfectly for those. And along with that, the unidirectional shear is just pretty much saying wind damage. However, if we get some surface level backing of the winds, more of them more coming out of the south, even potentially southeast, then we'll have to watch for tornado threat, especially with Boeing segments as well. The inherent rotation that's caused at the north and south end of them, especially the north end of the bow echoes, we're gonna have to watch for tornado potential. That's why we have a 2% tornado risk. Yeah, so mainly the storms should come in after 2, between 2 and nightfall, I'd say. There already is some convection going up near Binghamton, but more convection should fire as the clouds start to clear out. And now moving on to Hurricane Beryl. Yesterday I went to sleep, this thing was barely a hurricane, no eye, ragged convection, still pretty deep. I woke up today, this thing has a cleared eye, and it is a Category 3 hurricane, 105 knots. So this thing has intensified faster and earlier than any of the models predicted. And this is a consequence of just the ridiculously warm Atlantic Ocean temperatures for this time of year. A hurricane forming in this area of the Atlantic in June is pretty much unheard of. It has happened a couple of times in history, but this is a really rare occurrence. And this is shaping up to be a very bad situation for the Lesser Antilles. This thing should make landfall. If it does, if it could narrowly miss one of the islands, but it should make landfall on one of the islands between Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Not sure if I pronounced those correctly. Sorry if I didn't pronounce them correctly. But yeah, that's shaping up to be a terrible situation for them. This is looking like a Cat 4 when it's going to make landfall. But one thing to understand is that this only has to intensify 35 knots before landfall to become a Cat 5. And this is not something that it can't do. We have already seen it's intensified beyond what the models predicted and earlier. Well, not really beyond, but just earlier as per now. And this has pretty warm ocean waters ahead of it. However, as it enters the Caribbean, shear is going to increase to potentially even up to 20 knots, especially when it's entering the central Caribbean. And along with that, there's going to be a question as to whether this goes into the Yucatan Peninsula and then into Mexico, or whether it goes into the Yucatan, curves up into the Gulf, or whether it just curves up into the Gulf and misses the Yucatan. Right now, it's looking like it's just going to go into the Yucatan and go into Mexico, but the U.S. Gulf Coast, especially areas around Texas, Louisiana, needs to be on alert for any potential with the storm headed that way. It will definitely be weaker by the time it gets there because of land interaction with the Yucatan Peninsula and higher shear, but this is still something that needs to be watched closely. As per now, I hope the best for the Lesser Antilles. This looks like a pretty bad situation for them, but yeah, make sure you stay alert for any potential changes in intensity, and yeah. So if you're in the Northeast today, make sure you stay safe with the excessive wind damage expected from these storms. And if you're in the Lesser Antilles, you should probably be preparing right now for a Category 4 hurricane. And Yucatan Peninsula, U.S. Gulf Coast needs to also be prepared for any potential impacts from the storm.